Thousands gathered today on the National Mall to commemorate the peaceful protest. Across the country, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, bells rang out in honor of the great refrain from King's I Have a Dream speech, "Let Freedom Ring." Those bells from Grace Presbyterian Church in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania.
St. Francis of Assisi Roman Catholic Church in Los Angeles.
And a bell rang from the Lincoln Memorial.
Are you claiming the tripod?
It's the same bell that hung in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, before the church was bombed in 1963.
Participants in today's event expressed both joy for the progress made since the march, but also frustration with the long path ahead. Here's a small sample of voices from those who attended today's gathering.
Martin Luther King gave this great speech about "I have a dream," but it really wasn't about his dream, but it was about what was owed, what was promised way back that he was talking about. And so those promises have not been delivered on. And so this is what needs to be brought to the forefront.
I don't think there's a simple answer to point the finger at this, that, or the other.
No.
We certainly haven't solved
Do it
this
yourself,
problem,
little
and
big
we
girl.
haven't had the honest discussion, and we haven't solved the class problem.
There's more to do. It's more than just a memorial of something that was successful 50 years ago. It's a call to straighten out what this
Little Curious George.
It's Brian Kildee of Maryland,
Curious
and
Georgina.
Cooper of Virginia, and Mary Johnson of Washington, D.C.
Well, the last speaker today was President Obama. He delivered remarks from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, where King gave his speech.
Yeah, there's your tree you want.
We rightly and best remember Dr. King's soaring oratory that day. How he gave mighty voice to the quiet hopes of millions. How he offered a salvation path for oppressed and oppressors alike.
And for more on the president's speech, we're joined by NPR's Brian Miller, who's on the National Mall. And Brian, there were echoes of that oratory to which the president referred there, the oratory, the rhetoric from Dr. King.
That's right. I think in one sense the president was trying to set a low bar for his speech today on the same steps that Dr. King spoke on 50 years ago. He said that speech was one of the top 5 in the nation's history and said today that no one can match King's brilliance. But the president, as we've heard over the past 5 years or so, is not without his own oratorical skills. He referred to the marchers who came to Washington 50 years ago, the ordinary folks, the steelworkers and seamstresses, those who did not get on TV, and he said that their heirs are still on the march today.
That tireless teacher who gets to class early and stays late and dips into her own pocket to buy supplies because she believes that every child is her charge. She's marching. That successful businessman who doesn't have to but pays his workers a fair wage and then offers a shot to a man, maybe an ex-con, who's down on his luck. He's marching.
Now, Brian, President Obama has been at times reluctant to talk about race as president. He is, of course, the first African-American president. How did he address the topic today?
He gave credit, Melissa, to the marchers of 50 years ago, saying that they changed America.
How did she get up?
Here's
a big girl. He took a tumble and didn't even cry, or a big girl.
Segregation at lunch counters.
He's after that leaf.
In the workplace. And
Well,
that they
there it
changed
is.
America for all Americans,
It's
not
a
just
prize.
African Americans. And then he sort of gave a little tough love. He said that there were times when some of us claiming to push for change lost our way. He talked about assassinations, setting off self-defeating riots, and grievances against police brutality, tipping into excuse-making for criminal behavior. Here's a bit more of what he said.
Racial politics could cut both ways. As the transformative message of unity and brotherhood was drowned out by the language of recruitment.
Yeah. Look at all these big ones here. There's a big one. There's a big one too. It's been windy.
The chance for all Americans to work hard and get ahead was too often framed as a mere desire for government support. As if we had no agency in our own liberation. As if poverty was an excuse for not raising your child. bigotry of others was reason to give up on yourself. All of that history is how progress started. That's how hope was diverted. That's how our country remained divided.
And Brian, the president did seem to devote a fair amount of time in his speech to talk of economic injustice. He said that was part of the unfinished work of Dr. King.
That's right, and he used the opportunity to talk about the inequality of wealth distribution, issues like high unemployment among African Americans and Latinos, substandard schools, coupled with the need for health care reform. Here's what he said.
So, as we mark this anniversary, we must remind ourselves that the measure of progress for those who marched 50 years ago was not merely how many blacks could join the ranks of millionaires. It was whether this country would admit all people who are willing to work hard, regardless of race, into the ranks of a middle-class life.
And clearly, Melissa, he feels that that fight continues. He talked about, in a nice echo of Dr. King's speech 50 years ago, he talked about the right of every child from the corners of Anacostia to the hills of Appalachia to get an education, and said that with that we can feed the hungry, house the homeless, and transform the bleak wasteland.
Jungle gym, but it's alien tripod. Whoa.
But I know that we can get.
Hi.
I was struck too, Brian, that
Hi.
he extended
Say hi.
beyond the boundaries of this country. He talked about people taking a message from the
Say
civil
hi.
rights movement, those behind the
Say
Iron
hi.
Curtain. He talked about people shrugging off apartheid in South Africa, too.
That's right. He did broaden the message. And
I love you.
I'm well aware that despite there were tens of thousands of folks here on the mall, that people around the world were watching this event just as